Hi everybody, welcome to the first edition of the Money Talks. So, it's always been my thought that, in most events that you go for in VC, always talk about raising money, but very few of them actually will talk about what happens after you raise money. Founders and funders, right? Most of their life is not about funding; it's about everything that happens after the funding.
Right.
And so I've been thinking about having some sort of a format where we can invite entrepreneurs that have been through iterations. They could be successful, unsuccessful. They could be super successful. They could have exited. They may be on venture number 5, 6. But basically, I want people to come and talk about. Listen, hey, you raised funding. That's great. But now what? No, guys. In that sense, I don't think we could have had a better entrepreneur to join us today. I've known Harsh now almost coming on 4.5, 5 years.
That's right.
Thankfully, we were part of the Fynd journey with him. When I thought about the first guest that I should have for this live and we'll do this thing every Thursday night at 9 p.m. I couldn't think of a better team, right? And a better story, because you've now been an entrepreneur for 8 years, roughly the same amount of time I've been a VC. Right. And during that time, you have, you've got an amazing history. And let's just talk about that for a minute as your introduction. You raise money from everyone, right? And then you got the big fish, right? You got Jio
right.
as your acquirer and major investor today. And,
right.
and not just that, now Jio has all the major funds behind us. So indirectly, you've got now literally everyone, right?
That's true.
So,
yeah.
And that's what, that's why I'm really excited to have you on board, Harsh. And,
No, it's my pleasure.
Before we get into anything, like, why don't we give you a couple of minutes to talk about your journey, so people, can know more
right.
about what's happening behind Fynd.
Okay. So I think, let me go from the very beginning. I am a Bombay boy through and through. I did spend 2 years outside of Bombay, but couldn't really resist the call of the city. So came back. I did my engineering from IIT Bombay, worked for a couple of years in consulting and analytics, so mix of both. And then after working for a couple of years, came back and started my own company. I think I always wanted to start something of my own. Back in college as well, I was part of the entrepreneurship cell. I headed that in my final year. I had a startup in my final year as well. But left that, joined a consulting company, and then came back in 2012. So we literally drove down. So Farooq and me, my co-founder, and I literally drove down from Delhi to Bombay. It took us 3 days, spent one night in Udaipur, another night in Baroda, and then came back to Bombay and started something.
Wow.
Actually in the education, in the healthcare space, but quickly realized that, I think retail might slightly be better. So in 2012, July is, when we quit our jobs and came back to Bombay. We started on the journey. It's been 8 years. We've been called by 3 names, actually. When we started off, we were called AdSale. Then we moved our name to Shopsense and now to Fynd. And now a bunch of, Fynd products, mini Fynds under it. But yes, it's been a great journey. I don't think the journey is anywhere close to completion. I think it's been 8 years, but I hope there are another 80 more down the line, which I look forward to. But I think throughout the 8 years, our focus has always been to work with technology in the retail space. We are very lucky, both Farooq and I, that we got introduced to our third co-founder, Sriram, very early on. Since then, touch wood, the 3 of us have been lumbering around together, giving each other our shoulders to lean on, cry on, and whatnot.
And I'm guessing part of that having each other's shoulder would also be to smack each other's back when you guys got this entire acquisition completed in August.
So I think it's been now almost about 10 months since the transaction happened. Initially we think that it'll be that moment where you sign or where you see the money wired in the bank. It'll be one big hurrah and so on and so forth. But honestly, I think it took us a good 5 months to actually go through the whole transaction. So right from the term sheet, which was in February 2012, to actually the transaction being completed on 31st July 2019. It was a fairly good long 5 months. So at the end of that, it was not happiness, it was more relief, which was the emotion that we felt.
One of the things I really liked about the kind of entrepreneurs you guys were, and not just that, but even something that inspired me, and we emulated a bit of this in our fund, is those monthly updates you guys wrote, right? There was
Right.
And this was not us reaching out to you and saying, hey, where's the update, right? This was you coming out and talking about what's going on, and writing more in prose than giving PPTs, right? Which was, what inspired that? And we'll talk about some of the elements of that. Essentially, I would call it a newsletter, right? But what inspired that? What was the idea there? So many investors, some of them probably having competing investments, but you guys were really, really open about the whole communication. So please.
Yes, I think firstly, a big thanks to Sasha to actually ingrain this in us. Honestly, like any other human being, I think slightly divergent out here, but humans find ways to increase their laziness. And I think in the first 5 months of the investment that Kae had made back in 2013, we used to have these monthly updates, and I think Sasha really ingrained it in us that you need to send us something to actually look at. And initially it was presentations, but I think we very quickly figured out that why spend all the time to actually do presentations? Let us just send an email. And then as we started going down the journey, which was from 2013 onwards, what ended up happening is that at every juncture, we would talk to our investors and try and tell them what's going on, and where we need help, and so on and so forth. But I think even right in the first 4 months of being a VC funded company, we actually had about 20 names on the cap table, right?
Wow.
We had actually the whole gang of Powai Lake Ventures. So all our seniors from IIT Bombay, a bunch of friends also on a cap table, along with Sasha and Kae Capital. So I think not just giving Sasha an update, we wanted everyone to also take an update. And I think the reason was, I think across that group of 21 people, there were people who had their own companies, had run B2C companies, had run B2B companies, had been, VC funds and whatnot. And we thought that, it was very important for us to actually get their feedback on, how we are building our company, and to get their thoughts on, and advice and help on that. And, they would usually say, yeah, sure, write to us with, whatever you think you need help on. And that just became sort of, ingrained in us, where no matter how many shares you own in a company, you will get that monthly email every single month, right? Even if you own 1 share, if you own 100 shares, 1,000 shares, you invested in 2013, in 2016, 2018, doesn't really matter to us, right? Every investor for us is an evangelist of the company. Every investor for us is essentially a person who can add a lot of value to the growth of our company. And honestly, that was what our thought process was, to send out those updates. Now, we wanted people to come back and say, hey, you sent me this, I read through it. I think here are the 2 places where you could do better. And by the way, these are the 3 places which you've written about. I think, we should talk. I can give you more insight on this.
But, to your point, you were also very honest about the failures, right? Because you would talk about, and I remember reading them, that you would say, okay, last month we said this, but this month, this is whatever we thought is incorrect, where our burn rates are higher or lower, or our customer acquisition costs are much higher than we thought, and you were very candid about that. Did it ever occur to you that this could actually hurt you, and maybe you shouldn't?
I think at the end of the day, I always found, or I always thought and believed, and I think that was true as well, that my investors are in my corner of the ring, right? And I think I didn't think of anyone's competing investments, anything else whatsoever. All I thought of is that here are a bunch of guys, and of course gals, who are working with us in order to make this company better. I think that was the only sort of place where it was coming from. And we realized that we were doing this for the first time, in the sense building a company, doing all the things that we were doing, and we could really use some help. And I think across our investor pool, honestly, as you said, we had people from all backgrounds, all geographies, all categories, all structures, everything. We thought that they would have added a lot of value, which they did.
Very innovative. Just so you know, so the reason why I loved what you guys did, and we as a young fund, right, as a young fund manager, we thought about doing something similar, right? And so I actually write a monthly newsletter to my investors, right? Whether you invested 1 crore or 5 crores or even 40 crores into the fund. But I make two versions of it, right? I do one very in-depth with all the numbers and everything, because we're obviously sharing some stuff that is confidential, but we also do a second version that goes out to a larger network, right? Which is not as in-depth in terms of number, but has the same story. And you know, the feedback has been amazing, right? I mean, there are actual investors who are like, listen, we didn't get your monthly newsletter this month. and because, you know, I was busy, or maybe I was a few days late. And then they read it and come back and give you some really good feedback. So yeah, I mean, you know, here's an example of you know, you teaching us, you know, the big bad VC about how to run our side of the business.
I remember that Sasha was one person who gave us some feedback. Then there was Sheetal from GrowX who actually gave us feedback. Gagan Goel had actually given us feedback. So I think over time we've also sort of honed this sort of, you know, structure of the email. But you know, I mean, it's something that's definitely one thing that I would recommend every founder to do.
So now let's move the conversation a little bit towards this list of investors, and it's a great cue because you know, you had Sasha, and Sasha was one of the founders of Mumbai Angels, and then set up one of the first, I would say, early stage VC funds in India under Kae Capital. And then obviously you got some institutional capital, you got IIFL on board, then you've got some family offices, you got us on board, you got Singularity on board, and you have some global investors on board. And then something amazing happened, right? After this is a couple of rounds after we invested. You were one of the two investments that Google made in India, not Google Ventures, Google.com itself, right? And that was an amazing moment, right? You and Dunzo, I believe. Dunzo, these were two companies that Google funded. And then you got another 24 months later, Jio acquires you, right?
Right.
So let's talk about, you know, like all these different sets of investors, 86, I believe.
So we had 86 investors plus 3 founders and a bunch of ESOP holders. So I would say we're a fairly long cap table. I think we were very lucky that in 2014, I think this was, that SEBI changed the rules, or actually ROC changed the rules of what a public company is. I remember that back in 2012, I think if you had more than 20, it was public. It was termed to be a public company. Not really saying that it is not tradable on the stock market, but the fact that it's a public company. And then from that 20 got shifted to 80, and the 80 became 200. And you know, we were just very lucky not to have to go through any of those things that are there.
Entrepreneurship itself and how the whole Indian bureaucracy looks at entrepreneurship between 2012 and 2020 has gone through a marked shift. And throughout that journey, you've also had all these investors, and then getting the big fish, right? Google. And then Jio. So how has the journey been different with all these guys?
So I think it was the easiest to get our first round of funding. I think we had just done one meeting, just one investor, and that's it. I think Sasha and I had some history. While I was part of the ESL at IIT Bombay, Sasha was a regular, and you know, that's how we actually had known each other. The other bunch of Powai Lake Venture guys knew both Farooq and me, and you know, that was also the easy bit. But I would say overall, I would probably categorize my investors into maybe 5 categories. I think you had the angels, which was essentially earlier it was a bunch of guys who knew us. So you know, they were pretty much saying, okay, you know what, I think ye log kuch na kuch to dhang ka kar hi lenge. I think, you know, that was the mindset of, you know, them sort of investing in us. Then there was Sasha. No, I definitely agree that, you know, the IIT tag definitely gives you a leg up. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, but it does that. But I think more than that, those guys actually knew us. I mean, whether it was Zishan, Gagan, Shishir, Vaibhav, Samir, Abhishek, all of them actually knew us. So they said, yeah, you know, it doesn't really matter whatever these guys are doing. Matlab, kuch na kuch to kar lenge. So I think honestly that was the only thing that, you know, they applied, and they sort of put their money in us. Then there was Sasha, who said again that, you know, I think good guys, I know them well, and you know, we'll figure out something. At least, you know, they're the right combination of data and consulting and etc. etc. So again, they'll figure out something there. And then it actually got, you know, significantly tougher post that. Because I think we sort of turned up for the next round of funding around the mid to end of 2015, when the funding window was just sort of, you know, hitting And then we had, I think we were very lucky that, Sasha, as well as our original investors, which is Power Lake Ventures, reinvest in the company back then. We actually did a recap. Again, I mean, this is not too many startups, do that, but very, very thankful to our investors who realized that, this company needs more capital. And I think these founders also need more shareholding in order to actually make this, grow this company forward. And I think at that time, we also got Kunal Baer and Rohit Bansal. I think both of them, KB as well as Rohit, have, I think, through Snapdeal, I mean, there's a lot of shit that sort of is, talked about Snapdeal. But I think, one thing is definitely there is that the two of them have gone through every single thing. They know every trick in the book. And I think there's someone who's like experienced every goddamn thing that there is to be experienced, right? From the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And I think having those two also was like supremely great for us. I think their insight into how to run a company at every stage was absolutely brilliant. So I think, those two then came on board, and these whole bunch of, individual founders who are now investing in other founders. I think that is the one category which was actually super interesting to actually interact with, right? So actually that was one. And the second were these early stage funds. So you had Kae Capital, you had Artha, you had GrowX, you had Access Capital from the UK, and so on and so forth. You had Fabrice and his fund, from New York, who actually also invested in the very early stage. And for these guys, it was about, great guys. We understand that, you get product thinking well, and, you're able to execute also well. And, just, go ahead and, do this. So I think, these were these early stage funds who were, very, very dynamic, very, very exciting, in the sense that, they would look at new things. They'd constantly come and tell you, hey, you know what, there's something interesting that we saw. Can you guys do that? And they were actually our pulse to the market. I mean, a lot of times, we're so caught up with, what we're doing, and, maybe rightly so, that, these guys help us, get some semblance of structure, as well as some semblance of, ear to the ground outside of your land. So I think that is the second sort of funds. Then you've got the third category, which is essentially family offices, right? So you had Singularity. We had a bunch of other family offices also investing through either their individual holdings and whatnot. And these are the patient guys, right? And then these are guys who would say, you know what, we don't really worry about the 3 or 5 year. All we care about, things are going well. And the fact that you are building this in the right way to be built. Yes, some of them have looked at, early stage companies and, power law growths and things like that. But, they still have a tinge of, dhanda in their mind. The sort of fourth category is the IFL. IFL, again, was not an investor in the early stage business. If you see, that fund of IFL is actually a fund of funds as well as a fund. So they've invested in the likes of a K, IQ, and so on and so forth, Iron Pillar and whatnot. But they've also invested in companies. And I think what Prashast and Purvi got to the table is that Prashast is a hardcore public markets investor, right? So he's someone who would look at value picks and look at balance sheets and cash flows and look at PE ratios and things like that. And every single board meeting that we sat in, I think his ability to actually draw us to our return on capital ratios were actually very, very important to us. And I think this had just happened post the funding winter. And Prashast always came and said that मेरे को पता नहीं चल रहा ये लोग तुम लोग में क्यों पैसा डाल रहे हैं, बट मतलब अभी अगली बार अगर अपने को कुछ देखना है तो अपने को ये वाले metrics देखना है. So I think that mindset of a public markets investing that sort of Prashast put us into was also actually quite interesting. I mean, you don't see a lot of early stage investors actually putting in those metrics, right? You would look at a bunch of metrics like growth, week on week growth, etc., etc. But Prashant said, no, show me return on capital, show me, burn rates, growth, show me these metrics, show me these things, show me revenue per employee, show me revenue per customer, show me cost per customer. So that would be like the fourth category. And the fifth category was the Google, right? Where Google came up and said that, hey, you know what, we really find a very, very tough problem. We understand that, you may not have scaled up to the best possible way with respect to your peers in the market, but actually unique. And it's a hard problem to solve. And in general, we've not seen a lot of people, do this. So we'd love to support you guys do that. And hey, by the way, yes, we understand that it is a strategic value. I think shopping in general, everyone's trying to figure out the whole online to offline piece. That's something that we definitely want to be a part of. So I think Google was, they were from that mindset that, what, yes, let's build some long-lasting strategic value. And then now we've got Jio, for whom I think over the last 10 months has been slightly different from every other investor, in the sense that, yes, while their involvement has been like any other investor, where they leave us to do whatever we want to do. But their sort of feedback is actually very similar to the more traditional early stage VCs that we sort of come across, is that, okay, how fast can you execute? How fast can you grow? How big can you grow? Getting that mindset from one of the largest companies in India, say that, what you are thinking is like peanuts. Please don't waste your time on that. Please multiply this by at least 1,000. And then it's actually worth the time for me to talk to you about it. And, then we'll see if you can multiply that by another 1,000 and see if it's worth your time to actually start planning on that. So I would say that sort of a mindset again is actually very interesting. So I think across these 5 category of investors, we actually found a good tone or a good structure that, each investor across this category has actually brought to us. And I think that discipline has been very helpful.
Wow. I mean, obviously managing so many investors itself, right? It's and again, like you said, everybody has their own motivation on why they invested in Fynd. Guys, by the way, there's a bunch of people that have been logging in and commenting. If you guys want to ask a question to Harsh, please put it in the comments below. That my team is on the lookout and will highlight your questions. We'll take them along the way. So now let's talk about what's happening at Fynd now, right? Let's talk about COVID happened. Okay, there's an exit in August, right? 4 months later, crazy stuff starts happening in China. Another 4 months later, we're in lockdown, and you've been working from home now for 90 days. So what's been happening? What's going on? Let's talk about the 10 months and also what's going on at Fynd today.
So I think the 10 months was actually us continuing with our roadmap. I would say the 2 things that had changed is that one is we now had a fairly large partner who can give us access to a fairly large use case, especially within retail, right? For everything that we've been building. I mean, our focus for the last 8 years has always been to bring technology to retail, and now suddenly we've got sort of these points or these doors where we can test out a lot of things that we're building. So I think that was one thing that was different. The second is, of course, the scale of what we should be working on, what we should be building. I think that, as I said, multiplied by 1,000, multiplied by another 1,000. And I think while both these things were happening, we ended up spending a day a week in Ghansoli in Navi Mumbai on the Reliance campus. But I think apart from that, we were left to work the way we were working, take the decisions that we were taking, figure out our own product roadmap, all of those things. So I'd say that sort of didn't change at all. Up until that time, our focus in terms of categories was always fashion and lifestyle, which was fashion, so it's apparel, footwear, accessories, and a bunch of other stuff. But I think over the last 10 months, a lot more push has been to look at other categories also. And I think we started doing that. But I think along with that, we started looking at a lot of product extensions as well, right? So adding to whatever we'd built, whether it was on the commerce side or on the commerce enabling side, bunch of stuff that we've done over the last sort of 10 months have sort of come to fruition right now. Yes, our top line and the business and the transactions that we used to be doing came down by a huge margin. But I think the kind of company and the kind of services and the kind of platform we built, I think suddenly became in massive demand. The platform that we've built, a lot of brands have now pulled the trigger, saying that, hey, we really want Fynd's omni-channel platform to help us power our web stores, our marketplace listings, all our digital sort of touch points to consumers. And, we understand that, we've been talking about this for quite some time, but COVID has pretty much shaken us into accepting this reality immediately. I think as a team, we've been like super, super overworked. Honestly, I think we've never seen the kind of activity in terms of business development, deployments, builds, agreement signings, and so on and so forth, as you've seen in the last 90 days. And I think hats off to the team to actually, nonetheless pull it off while we are at home, while we are going through a bunch of stuff mentally as well. It just allowed us to reprioritize a bunch of stuff on the commerce and the non-commerce side, and then make it available for everyone.
For the people that are actually watching this, what does Fynd do, right? And from the consumer angle as well as from the brand angle.
Today, what Fynd essentially does is Fynd provides a technology platform for brands to actually merge their offline and online channels, right? So whether you've got distributors, warehouses, MBOs, multi-brand outlets, your own stores, franchisee stores, anything. Or you've got your website, presence on marketplaces, social media, any of those things. I think Fynd essentially provides the platform for you to merge these two. So if there are physical brands who want to go online across a lot of channels, Fynd will help you do that, and vice versa. So I think we create a fairly non-intrusive layer which sits atop a lot of the systems that the brands currently have and help them generate more sales. That's what Fynd does, right? So we've got multiple lines of businesses and multiple products. I think our B2C business, which is Fynd.com, is most known to most consumers. I think there are about 18 to 20 million odd consumers who've used the Fynd application. But funny enough, that is actually the smallest part of our business. I think the GoFind app, the Fynd app, the GoFind.com or Fynd.com, both are sort of an e-commerce platform where you're getting products right from stores that are close to you or far away from you. That's one product. The other product is actually putting technology in the physical store to allow brands and retailers to provide endless aisle solutions, to save the sale, which is actually being missed out because of out of stock inventory, so on and so forth. And we've got a product which allows the brands stores to actually hook up and activate online, which is both their website as well as the marketplaces. We've got one business called Unicate, which is essentially helping brands penetrate into the eB2B segment, which is essentially tying up with retailers, with traditional mom and pop retailers, and create their website in a matter of 3 to 4 days. So we actually pulled this early on. Where,
let's talk about that.
Right. So I think, as we started building websites for a lot of brands, right, we started realizing that there are so many modular things which can be built in a way where it can be utilized by more than just one client per se, right? So the way we build that platform is saying that, hey, the vision is that if anyone wants to build an e-commerce website, you can come to us and we build it for you, and we'll give you all the tools available to go live in the next 4 to 5 days. Essentially, a lot of people want to start selling online. They could be, single homepreneurs. It could be a store. It could be a large brand, but they don't want to, go through, the standard. There will be 3 phases over 6 months. In phase 1, you'll get this. Phase 2, you'll get that. We'll, go through this whole big customization cycle. Nothing of that sort. We very clearly said it's very simple. Just, come on board, list your products, and go live. And we'll not only give you the platform, we'll also manage payments for you. We'll also give you logistics, all of those things there. So just very, very simple, go live. That's it.
Let's talk about, there's a lot of people obviously watching that are entrepreneurs. Some of them that pitch maybe to us or to other VCs or investors that, hey, I'm going to become part of a large conglomerate. The exit's going to be to some large company eventually through M&A. But you've actually done it, right? So in that sense, what's it like to be part of something as massive as Jio, right? And maybe, is it everything that is made out to be? Is there, any restrictions that you deal with, or do you feel you're more empowered? Maybe just touch upon those points.
So I think it's very interesting. When we were, under discussion with Jio and Reliance, I think we spoke to a lot of people in the market to understand, their feedback on what we should do. And everyone said, oh, this is this massive company and it's very top-down driven organization. And, they have their way of doing things. You guys will get lost. You guys will get pushed around, so on and so forth. And I think all kudos to them. I think, we've been quite happy, honestly. The way they spoke to us, I think with a lot of respect, and they respected the capability, not just of, what we've done, but also what we can potentially do. They respected, what we did bring to the table. They respected the way we had built our company, built our culture. And they said, you know what, we are investing in you not only because you built something, but also in the way you've gone about building it. And we don't really want to really disturb you on that. And, we want you to be in that comfort zone or in that high performance zone and do whatever you want to do, as long as, we're aligned when it comes to our goals and sort of interests there, right? And I think they've let us be, we do talk to them very often. Apart from being an investor on the cap table, they play a very independent and distinct role of being a client to your products as well. Feels like they really are sort of investors like any other VC on the cap table, backing the company to actually grow as much as possible. And on the other side, they're clients who want to figure out that, what you're building for them is most useful and creating the most amount of impact for them. So I think that has been like really, really great. Right. And I think as entrepreneurs, when you speak to Akrit, you spoke to, Just, I think both of them will probably say the same thing, is that you've got the comfort and the independence, build it your way. As long as, it doesn't impact the quality of work output as well as the delivery that you want to do.
But now you've gone from managing 86 investors to managing one. Does that change the way things are right now? Do you feel a little bit? Is it constrictive? Is it more creatively empowering? What's it like?
So I would say it's actually more creatively empowering, because I think two reasons why. I think number one is, like I said, the independence that they've given us to run the way we want to run, along with the fact that, and it's not just independence for the sake of independence. They very clearly are sure that, we don't want to know about your other clients, their data, their businesses, nothing of that sort. They are your clients. No matter what you build, they will have a need for it, right? If not a need for it, that there is a place where you can potentially try it out or test it out. So I think that sort of ability to think of anything, and that you will have a ready place where you can experiment, and if it works well, a massive scale up also.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not that, sure, they'll have 5 stores, you can do it, but they've got like 5,000 stores. So if it works
Absolutely.
in 5 stores,
Reliance
they'll scale it to 5,000 stores. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think overall, I think it's been both empowering creatively as well as, getting us the independence to work the way we want to work.
And and that's what I've heard about everyone who's been acquired and is working with Jio now, is that this is not the Reliance of old. This is the Reliance of new, and things are very, very different. And
Right.
And I'm glad. I think we finally have someone in India that is willing to acquire entrepreneurs and then let them be, right? Because the typical idea is that you acquire an entrepreneur, but then kill the founder in him, right? Because then you start telling him, start giving me quarterly reports. And unfortunately, entrepreneurship and disruption doesn't happen on quarterly reports, right? Or it doesn't happen every quarter.
Hold on. So you still give some quarterly reports, but it's a structured process like you would give to any other investor.
Yeah. And what was it like to get acquired? Did you let's say someone over here today who's on this IG live is about to is thinking about selling his company, right? And wants to get someone like a Jio to acquire them. So what are the 3 things he should do?
I think honestly, the acquisition didn't happen. It's not an acquisition. The majority investor, they've acquired all our other investor shares. They've taken a majority stake. The rest still sort of remains with the founders. But I think the first thing is, I don't think any one of us were in the mindset of selling at all, honestly. I think the mindset was that by being a part of the larger group, you're now going to be able to expand and create a much larger impact that your business would not have been able to create without that sort of support there. So I wouldn't take it as a selling mindset whatsoever. I wouldn't take it as an exit mindset whatsoever. For sure, for my investors, it's an exit mindset. As a founder, for me and for our team, it's actually a much larger opportunity to do a lot more of what we were anyways doing. And to actually do it at a much larger scale. So I think that mindset is absolutely important. Even from someone like a Jio is important, where they're looking at founders not to actually buy out their tech and take it for themselves for their use, but to actually figure out that what these guys are doing is something interesting which can be worthwhile and can create impact to us as well. I think that's the sort of meeting of the mindsets, which is very important. So I think for founders, I do believe that companies are not sold. I think they're bought. I think that's the best way in which you can actually get the right value. But nonetheless, I think as a founder, if you are looking to get sold, probably that's not the right mindset, I would say. With most of these guys, not just Jio, but we've dealt with corp dev teams of large multinational companies across the world at some point of time or the other. And I think everywhere the mindset was, hey, we really like what you're doing, and we're very excited with what impact you can create while being a part of our network, where you can create a much larger impact. And I think that's the mindset for an entrepreneur. And if the entrepreneur is thinking that I'll sell and then serve my 2-3 year golden handcuff period and then do something else, I don't think that transaction's being done in the right spirit. Even when it comes to trying to figure out the decision to sell or either 100% or majority. At Fynd, it's been 8 years. We've got about 7 acquisition offers in the last 8 years. Right from
Wow.
2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, a couple in 2018, and one in 2019. I mean, even at the time of Reliance's conversation, I think we were having multiple conversations with multiple players, honestly, and there were at least one player who had a slightly better deal than Reliance had in terms of the valuation and the price and things like that, which have of course made our investors slightly 10-12% more richer from their investments. But all of them came in with the mindset where they said you don't have to do anything, you just have to come here. Whereas with Reliance, the conversation was always about, hey, this is not the end of Fynd. This is not the end of the the founders that you are. We're just going and helping you get into the next orbit. And I think that conversation was the most useful to have.
I read a Clayton Christensen book, and this was, he talks about the dilemma of an acquisition, right? A lot of the times you acquire, and then you expect, you want to assimilate that business into yours, and then you essentially kill why the business was so good. And I'm glad the way I'm understanding it, the Jio platform saying, listen, do things what you're already doing. Let us know how we can enable you, right? And I think that's ensures that you guys have your individual journeys, and as long as things are going well, they're there to support and they're there to enable. So that's a good thing.
Right.
So let's switch gears for a second, right? I think we've talked a lot of business, a lot of shop, but let's talk about some of your personal interests. I realize there's a common conception, and I think the media sort of hypes it up, that entrepreneurs are only supposed to be working all the time, 24/7. They should be thinking about the business when they wake up. They should be thinking about the business. They should be dreaming about the business. When they go to sleep, they should probably be on their desk. But what I have realized is that you are an advanced open water diver, right? Just like myself. So
yes.
Fellow diver.
That's right.
You're also
nice.
an avid book reader. You travel, right? And
yes.
and you're also into running. Tell me about these passions, and also like, how did you get into diving? And I believe you dived Galacticus in December. So
that's right. I did. So I think yes, I think Farooq dived before me, honestly, and I think he showed some of his photos, and he did his open water course in Havelock in Andaman. He said, you guys should definitely try this out. And then I tried it, and I actually enrolled only for the basic open water diver. And it was the standard 10-12 day vacation at Havelock in Andaman. And after the first 3 days, I said, this is actually quite interesting. I want to go for the advanced one as well. On the trot, did both by basic and advanced with a friend of mine. And I think that was just sort of got me hooked. I think, honestly, I've been very lucky that my wife also loves diving. She just got her basic open water diving done as well. A bunch of our friends like diving as well. I think the first dive where you're sort of inside the water, where you can't hear anything except the sound of your own bubbles, and probably the clinking of the instructor to try and get your attention. It was just so magical. I think you could pretty much forget about everything. I mean, you think that Hrithik Roshan had that cliche in Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, but it was actually that sort of a feeling as well. Where unfortunately, I didn't have a Katrina Kaif instructor, but nonetheless, I think the emotions that one goes through is just very, very different. I think it was also slightly unnerving to actually move around in a fully 3-dimensional space, where that when you're walking, you're at least tethered to one dimension. It was actually very, very interesting, and I think every vacation that we've tried to do after that, we've tried to have at least one dive in every vacation. Every time you get into the water, there's nothing but you, the surrounding, and your bubbles, right? And there's no cell phone that can work down there. There is no, nobody can call you, no Twitter, no WhatsApp. Right. And it's just you, and you're just one of the fishes, right? And I think it's an amazing moment to be there. Yep. So Harsh, you talked about how Rohit and Kunal and the fact that they were the first founders investing into other founders. But I believe you two are now a founder investing into other founders. In fact, one of the ventures you referred to us is something that we're about to close investing in. Sure. You've got 15 investments. I think a couple of them we overlap on. A couple of them we compete on, but that's comes with the space. But tell me, what was your inspiration to start investing?
and a little bit about your investments. You've obviously got Chayos, you've got Purnia's pop-up shop. One of them is about 20x right now,
I
marked up
think
at this point.
Bizongo. Yeah,
Bizongo, yeah, exactly.
that's right. Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
your investment history. What was the inspiration? What kind of stuff are you looking for? If there is an entrepreneur listening in right now and wants to pitch you, what should he or she be doing? So I think it's a two-part question.
So I think I don't have any specific sort of sector or typecast of founders that you would sort of look at. I think honestly, it started off with just trying to just sort of pay back. I don't think it was ever about making money or getting returns. I think we really loved and really respected the kind of help that we got from Zishan, Gagan Goel, Kunal and Rohit, and a bunch of other founders as well, Ramakant Sharma, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think it was just we just enjoyed that network of people who would sort of give back, even if it was not about sort of investing. It was always about spending time with them. And at some point of time, you said, what, sure, I'd love to be a part of the journey officially. Put my money where my mouth is, and it sort of started like that. Started off with as small as 2 lakhs to even actually something as small as 1.5 lakhs. I think the simple thing is that I think for me honestly, it was about backing a founder. Ideally, most of these bets were actually super early stage, which was most cases pre-product also and pre-revenue. So it was about backing a founder, where I thought that, hey, here is someone who has a lot of spunk. Who has a lot of ambition, and would love to help out in any way I can. So I think it just sort of started off like that. I think I have about 16 or 17 investments right now. Like I said, average is about 1.5 to 2 lakhs in each of them, and it's usually sourced through our networks, so whether they are juniors, seniors, batchmates, and so on and so forth, or other founders in the industry who've come up and said, hey, we want help with that, etc., etc. I think one of the companies has actually shut down, but nonetheless, don't really regret ever investing in
one
them
out
as well.
of 16. 1 out of 16 is a really good track record.
No, but I mean,
1 out of 16
it's
is an
no.
enviable
Here's the
track
thing.
record.
It's not as though the other 15. So I'm not saying that the other 15 have given a lot of money, right? I mean, I haven't had a single exit whatsoever, right? So it's just been one knockdown, 0 exits. I think sure, paper money wise, yes, there is an appreciation. But I think in general, I think the jury's still out. Like I said, it's not an investing decision. It was more about backing a founder who had a lot of spunk, ambition, and the potential and the capability also. So I think it was essentially a mix of that.
So in that sense, Harsh, maybe you could, obviously you're referring deals to us as well, and we thank you for that, because obviously the deal flows of another quality altogether. If a founder wants to reach out to you and would like for you to to show his deal to you, or would like to even get maybe you to pitch it to us, like what should they do?
So I think honestly, while a simple email to harsh@fynd.com will work. I mean, I read all my emails. I have a 0 inbox policy, so I definitely read absolutely every single email that I get. Not that I would respond to all of those emails, but I definitely read all of them. However, of course, if there is a common connection, a warm introduction is always looked upon with more time as opposed to a cold email. But nonetheless, I think even a cold email at harsh@fynd.com will work. I think honestly, I would recommend companies to others only if I am confident of investing in that company myself. So if you are asking me, saying that, hey, can you connect me to someone because I want them to fund me, but you're not funding me, I probably may not do that connect. The only reason why I would do that connect is if they're asking for a valuation which is probably not something that I would like, or it's an area which I don't understand, in which case I would do it to someone else. But otherwise,
so I think we've lost Harsh for a bit till he gets back on. Thank you very much, guys. There's been a lot of comments coming back and forth. I know the AVF handle from my team has been entertaining all of us for a bit now. But that being said, if there's any questions, we've got a couple of questions from the audience that I'm going to ask. If there's any further questions you would like for me to ask, go ahead and ask them in the comment section. My team is taking the questions and rolling them back to me. So, Harsh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get you to repeat this answer because I think
Sure.
we lost a bunch of it. But the question that was being asked, was that how do you go from research and building a business plan, and then you get that, get that show on the road? So, when is that transition, and maybe also when do you start, stop doing the research and then start doing the execution?
I think honestly, there is no such timeline as such. I think, yes, you do research, but you do research on the space, the market, and so on and so forth. But I think more importantly, you do research on the problem. I would not, I mean, I'd probably do more research on the problem than on the market and competition and things like that, right? And I think the moment you've identified a problem, that's when you start building a solution. And it's just, I mean, everyone's, heard this so many times that, don't try and build a perfect product, try and get something fast. But that's very true because no matter what you build or you ship the first time out, what it ends up being, even like 6 months later will be very different. So don't try and overthink it. Don't try and over research. I think the moment you believe that you've zeroed in on a problem, you found the right sort of factors that are sort of affecting or causing that particular problem, start building immediately.
And when you're doing this, there's an element of the lean startup mentality here, right? Which is like go to market and then learn from, and measure and then go back and build. Is that
Right.
what we're getting at? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I think that process is going to be a cyclical process throughout your company. I don't think you're ever going to stop building. I mean, there's so many jokes that we make internally. Initially when we were naive, we used to say, sure, we'll do this in version 1, we'll do this in version 2. There is no version 2. And there are so many things that you need to do that once version 1 is out, you're saying, boss, abhi kuch aur ka version 1 nikalte hain." So I think the version 2 never comes out. I think you just have a lot of version 1s, and then after 5 years later, you'll be like, oh shit, this looks so bad. I think we need to reskin this or change this. And then someone will say, okay, let's start changing it. And I think, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to be able to change this. I don't want to get into this mess to try and change it. We just build something new. And I think, and then that becomes version 1 of that new thing. So there's never a version 2. So just, start building a lot of version 1s, I would say.
What's 3 pieces of advice that you could probably think back to? But this person gave me this advice, and that really was truthful, right? This is exactly what this really helped, and I'm sure people that are watching this would like to know, what that advice was and how it helped.
The 2 things that specifically come to my mind, honestly, I think one was I think Kunal and Rohit, and we were just at the cusp of scaling up Fynd. So Fynd, as the B2C app, had been launched in Bombay. This is about, I think, June or July 2016. We just launched in Bombay with, doing about $200, $300 a day. We had a fleet which was doing same day delivery. We were doing, this try and buy where we'll send you 2 sizes. You try it out, whatever fits you, you keep. Doesn't fit you, send it back with us and whatnot. And I remember meeting Kunal at Orba Pain at GK1 market. It was GK1 or Defcall market, one of the 2. I think it was Defcall market in Delhi. And I met Kunal there, and I was just taking him through what we were thinking about for the next 6 months. And he just said, "No, guys, wait 1 sec. The scale that you're trying to do is fine, but the way you're trying to achieve this in terms of the organization structure, strength, etc., doesn't really match up. And if you were to then extend this further, I don't think this is the kind of organization that you want to build." And I think that was something which definitely sort of stayed with us when we go back and think of the kind of organizations that we want to build. I think at that time, we were like in Bombay, we said, okay, we'll go to 10 cities, and sure, we have a fleet of about 10 people, 20 people, become 200 people and whatnot. Then he said, okay, fine, that's okay. That doesn't sound too daunting. But what is your goal? Your goal is to have this in 200 cities, 300 cities? And he said, yeah, sure. And then if you need about 10 people per city, 15 people per city, just, figure out how many people you need. And is this the kind of organization that, you want to build? I mean, that's okay. If it is, then it's fine. I mean, you can always build a Swiggy-like organization where you've got, 100 cities, hundreds of riders in every city and so on and so forth. But you need to think about the kind of organization that you want to build. So, just go back and, think about, the scale and what you have to build to manage that scale. I think that was definitely one very interesting piece of advice. The second is actually by another investor called Vikram Limaye. Vikram is now the CEO of National Stock Exchange. Before that, he was the CEO of IDFC Bank, and he sort of came on board, and this again back in sort of 2015. And we sort of probably staring at a bridge round that was almost about to close, but taking time. We were running out of capital, and we went to him and said, we don't really know how do we do this, but we realized that we've got to cut down on costs, so we've got to give salary cuts and so on and so forth. How are you managing, in a bank as big as IDFC? You guys have also gone through a bunch of, things in the recent past. The clarity with which he sort of, led us to think through, different parts of the organization. How is it structured? How many people do you have? How many people earn above a particular number? How many people don't earn above a particular number? How many people have ESOPs, don't have ESOPs? Okay, where do you draw the line? The line doesn't have to be the same for everyone. Be different for different people. And I think this is before we had, Brian Chesky write about, how he did the Airbnb layoffs. It was much before, how, Dara wrote about how he did the, reorg at Uber. And this is actually very, very early on. And, he went up about and, gave us a very, very good meticulous plan. And he sort of gave us, but so we sat there for about 3 hours over dinner. He sort of, very meticulously laid out the structure while talking to us and said, okay, this is what you need to follow. And I mean, it was just great to actually get that sort of advice from him. And, we did experiment with that. We did execute what he said. And then that sort of made us a much stronger company. And I think the other thing is actually Sasha, honestly. And this is, Sasha has helped us do 3 bridge rounds, one sort of, recap and whatnot. And I think at every single time, Sasha would, give us with so many stories of companies that didn't work. And, that pivoted. It's like, I mean, Sasha was an investor in Myntra, in Mobi, companies that have, done, huge amount of revenue, Fractal Analytics, Shopper Stop, and, whatnot. And I think the tales he told us about, prioritizing and, making the decision, being okay to walk away from something that you've built, but, looking at something else, I think that has been, really, really helpful. So I think before we pivoted from Shopsense to Fynd, I think Sasha gave us 3 months and says, we guys don't need our money back. You guys have 3 months to figure out whatever you want to do. It doesn't really have to be in retail. It could be anything. Just, come back after 3 months and, pitch to us saying, what would you rather do with the money that you have? And I think just, taking us through the kind of, decisions or the kind of pivots that Myntra has gone through, InMobi has gone through, Fractal has gone through. I think those sort of helped us, look at things in a different way.
The three lessons for any entrepreneur who's listening to us and seeing this video is that know the organization you're trying to build, right? Which is extremely important.
And I think, so I think it's not just know the organization, but it also has to match the way you are, right? I mean, it has to be in line with your principles, your character, the way you go about doing things.
I can subscribe with that, because every single time I've noticed that I talked to an entrepreneur who suddenly wants to build a 3,000 person, feet on street kind of a model. And the question I asked them is like, have you ever been feet on street? Right? Have you ever dealt with people that are doing feet on street? And it's very easy to think that these people that are going to be feet on street are going to be very easy to manage, but it requires a certain level of mentality. It requires a certain level of finesse to manage a feet on street model. And then the second one was that have a proper organization chart. Know where every person sits on that chart, right? So two pieces of advice very close to each other. Know the kind of team.
Right. And just reassessing at every stage. I mean, back when you were doing Shopsense, it was a profitable company, wasn't growing as much, but I think he just allowed us to, go back and say, guys, you need to refocus. And I think it's okay. I think we've seen the largest of companies in the world refocus multiple times until they find what they stand for. So I think I would say those sort of tales of, both pivots, successes, failures, decisions, I think that sort of helped us a lot.
What was maybe 2 pieces of advice that you got and you thought at the time was brilliant, but you realized over the last 8 years of being an entrepreneur was absolutely nonsense, and you would tell anybody that if you get this advice, do not follow it?
I think the biggest one is, hey, this is happening in China, you guys should do it. So that was like the most stupidest advice that we've ever got. And I mean, unfortunately, or you know what, hey, SoftBank just funded something like this. Oh, hey, Sequoia just put money in something like this. You guys should also have a look at it.
Don't
I
be a
think that is like,
copycat. Like
I think
that's
that's like the
yeah,
stupidest thing.
yeah.
I think that was, really, really stupid. And I think the second was the other bad advice would probably be, just figure out growth, revenue can come later. I guess, that's the other would sort of thing that's there, right? I mean, just add numbers, you will figure out revenue later. I mean, sure, sometimes it does happen. And, at every stage, different stages of the company, you have to prioritize different things. But I think, I mean, having gone through like almost 3 bridge rounds, thrice and 4 times, out of cash and whatnot, I would say that it's not something that, you take easily.
You're one of the only companies that in my current portfolio, and where you're one of the rare companies who, first of all, took a hit on their valuation to recap the company. And
Right.
you're also one of the very few companies that convinced all the investors not only to recap, but I believe every single one of them also invested in the recapped account,
Right.
in the recap
Round,
round.
yeah.
Extremely, extremely rare. I mean, hats off to you. I believe we came into the recap round, if I'm not wrong.
Right, right.
And honestly, the biggest, because people normally have this notion that don't invest in companies where the valuation has gone down and blah blah blah. But the fact that all your investors were willing to give you guys equity back and then willing to put more money behind the company was one of the primary reasons why we invested. Right? It just told us that your investors were so happy with your efforts. It wasn't about the results, it was about the effort. They were so happy with it, they're willing to back you for one more round. What was that like? And it was obviously difficult, it was tough, I'm pretty sure, to tell these people, but what was it like?
I think at that time I was actually in Goa, I remember, and I had a call with one of my investors, Abhishek Jain, who's also a fairly popular angel investor, active angel investor across multiple companies. And I was having a chat about, where the situation was. And mind you, Abhishek like put 10 lakhs in the company early on. So it's not as though he was a massive investor. I mean, yes, at that time he was probably like the fourth largest investor, but like a big gap between the first and the second, third, fourth, and all. And I was generally just chatting with him and saying that, hey, yes, this is happening, but we're not really sure how much you want to raise because we don't know, we don't want to be diluted so much. We'd already gone through one bridge before that, and we're trying to figure out how do we optimize for it. And he said, you know what? Why don't you guys just ask Kae if they're okay with doing a recap? I mean, how does it hurt to actually ask them? And I mean, you guys have been fairly open, and we also understand that we'd rather do this than see our money go down the drain, honestly. And we'd rather you have one more session or one more bout left as opposed to knocking out right now. And it may not be that bad an idea. I mean, if you ask me, sure, I might take a small hit, but I think if that hit is still going to be significantly lower than a complete write-off, write-off of my investment. Plus, I believe that you guys are fairly good, and you may be beating around the bush, but you are beating around the right bush. So if you just get some more time to find out the penetration point, you might be able to do it. So that happened over, I think, on a Saturday in Goa, and I think Monday I was back in Bombay, and then I was talking to Sasha and said, hey, I think we need to meet, and we know that this round is happening. But just FYI, after this round, we will be down to like X% each. And we're not really sure if then, that's the right thing for us. So I said, okay, what do you think it should be? He said, it should be this way. I said, okay, so sure, we'll do it. No
Oh,
worries.
wow.
So okay, that's great. I mean, it was actually as simple as that.
But
And
I don't think it was as simple as you're saying it, right? Because I think a lot of it also went on because of the way you treated them in the past.
I mean,
right?
sure, of course. I think at the end of the day, yes, they were never in the dark about what's happening.
Yeah.
I think the communication lines were always very, very open. Whether it was an official board meeting or not, we would meet every month. We'd be chatting every week, these sort of things. We were probably again one of the first companies where they said, give us a presentation. We said, no, screw a presentation. We'll give you a live dashboard. So, we said, so, I mean, that was the amount of transparency that was there where whatever dashboards we saw in the company, they had the links to all of those dashboards. So they could see in real time what's happening with the company.
Let's not call it a screw up, but let's say even if you go wrong with things, they have a tendency to forgive you for it, right? Rather than being surprised. Like, and I think that's the key there. Although Harsh presented it as something so simple, this is a great lesson for any entrepreneur listening in.
I mean, honestly, this happened as of yesterday also, actually as of today. So one of the companies that I'm invested in is doing the next round of funding, which is great. I think there's like a significant bump in valuation. But I was looking at the pre and post cap tables, and I saw that the founders, the 4 founders, were down to like sub 10% each. And I immediately messaged the founder saying, "Hey guys, I don't think this works out. I mean, sure, you're raising a round and that's great, but I think you need to recap. Either take some ESOPs right now, or speak to your investors. You want me to speak to your lead investors? Happy to do that, but I think you need to do a recap. And because I think your company will require a lot more capital over the next 24 to 36 months. And if you're going to be continuously diluted down from say 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, then I'm not sure if you guys will be motivated enough to actually do this." And that's why I think you should do the recap. And happened like as of today, this conversation happened. So now let's hope that those guys do it as well.
In fact, we're doing it for one of our companies that's having sort of a flat round, but we're saying, listen, we really think the company is valued at this number. So let's take some part of the ESOP pool which is unallocated, and if you guys hit X number, because the revenues are down because of the pandemic, but you just get back to your number in December or Jan, and guess what? We'll allocate stocks in from ESOP. So you effectively, as founders, end up at the same equity number as you would have if the round had happened. So I think it's so. And again, I think even in that company, we have weekly calls, and we've been part of them since they were doing their first loan. Today they're doing 20,000 loans, and it's that the familiarity with that story really helps, right? And you obviously being on both sides of the table, can attest to that. So I think for now, I don't know if there's any other questions that I've missed, but I guess there is a question that let's talk about. Have your work hours changed? And this is the question I'm sure from someone who have your work hours changed after getting acquired by Reliance?
Not really. I would say I don't think the transaction with Reliance was the thing. I think what has changed is that I think Reliance works in a very different time zone than which we work at Fynd. I think we are the more early workers. I mean, I would usually get into office at 8 o'clock, out by 4:30, and be back by home. I think mostly to avoid the Bombay traffic, but also because of the fact that I'll get early on in the day some time of my own. I think with Reliance, I think the only difference is that I think they work probably at sort of either Dubai time or probably Budapest time or something. And I think the late night calls with Reliance have actually gone up high. But I wouldn't think that within the company our timelines have changed. I mean, I still work 6 days a week, probably 7 days mentally. But yeah, I mean, that does happen. I think the advantage now is because if I know that I have to, I mean, especially in the last 90 days, I've got some free time in the afternoon. Sometimes which is either spend some time with my wife or just have a nap. But I think in general overall the amount of time in a day has been pretty much similar.
Okay, so I think Harsh will take a couple more questions.
Sure.
So what's a book you're currently reading? What's the book that you want people to read right now? Entrepreneur, so and lead one investor if you have one.
So, I mean, a lot of people in my team know this already, that I'm a massive history buff. I like reading history a lot. And I think it just goes down. I mean, it just stems from the fact that, we believe that, what's happening to us is so unique. But when you go back to the history of the world, 10,000 years, you know that, there have been larger things that have, been burned down to dust. And I think, so right now I'm reading a book called A Little History of the World, which is ideally a history book, which is being recommended for like early teenagers. So it's been written in a nice story way. I'm probably halfway done through that. But I think the next book that I'm going to be picking up is a book called Range by David Epstein, which essentially talks about how generalists can win in a specialized world. So I mean, I look at myself as a generalist. I don't think I have too many specialized skills. I have a bunch of generalized skills, which sort of helps me do the role that I do. And this range book is sort of going to help me figure out am I doing them right or no. So I think these are the two books that are on my list right now.
Fantastic. And there is one question. I'm guessing revenue versus valuation.
I think it's a simple one. I think revenue comes first always, except when you're raising funds. At that time, valuation always comes first. Because everyone will try and show you that, oh, but you have only so much revenue. No, so what valuation is this much? So I think that's the only time a valuation trumps revenue.
So let me close on this thread, and this will be the last question. I know it's almost 10:40 by the time we're going to end. But the question I had was, you talked about, obviously giving the bad news to your investors. But at the end, when the exit was done, what was the feeling like when you said to your investors and that here's the money back and here's I remember we had a conversation after we had the money credit to our account, and I was like, man, it was such a great experience just dealing with Fynd, and because you guys handled everything for us, right? This was not an exit where I was having to call you guys multiple times. This was an exit where you guys are telling us, listen, get ready. There's money. Here's the account number. Give us your account number. Here's the money coming in. So I think, in that sense, what was the feeling like that now the journey, at least with these investors, was over? What was that feeling like? Did you get any accolades, brickbats? People saying, you could have sold for 10x more, I guess. I mean, what is it like?
So I think in general, there were definitely investors who said, hey, we want to continue, being in the company. And why are you guys selling now? Yes, that's true. That's true. You guys one of them. It was everyone was questioning, why are you selling now? And, do you guys really need to sell and so on and so forth? I think every investor asked us that. But I think at the end of the day, I think everyone knew and respected that this was the right decision for the company. I think everyone understood the value that Reliance, being a majority investor in the company, can have for the company. Of course, everyone also knew that they were making decent returns on their investments. I think the worst person made like a 30% IRR or something of that sort.
We made 62%, just so you guys know. I checked that today.
Perfect. So. Great, thank you. That's good. But yeah, so I think of course Google was the worst one because it came the latest per se. But they also made like a 30% IRR on that. So I think in general, I think people wanted to stay invested. But I would say it was the right thing for the company, and I think that's exactly what the conversation with every one of them was. That it is the right thing for the company. Believe us, if there was any other option, we would have taken it. Option not in terms of number of options or lack of options, but if there was a better option, we would have definitely taken that. But I think it was the right thing with the company, and I think most investors were happy. I think everyone did sort of congratulate us or send us messages, called us and said, hey, this is great, and always ended up with saying, acha, when are you guys starting up next? We'd love to invest there also, or call dibs on investing in you guys during when you start up next. And I think that gave us a lot of happiness more than anything else. I think my co-founder Sri Raman spoke about this at least internally in the company when he had his AMA. I think this is probably one of the proudest moments in our lives, was to actually give positive returns back to our investors. Honestly, I think that was one of our proudest moments so far. I think just the fact that we were able to pay back the trust that they put in us, I think that was actually very, very satisfying for us. I think one of the investors told us that also. Actually, he said that all said and done, yes, this will probably not be my 30x return, 40x return, 50x return, but returns in India, cash returns in India, you can actually count on your fingers. There are not too many companies that have given cash returns there, and at the end of the day, none of them were like waiting. Positive cash returns, yeah.
Positive cash returns, yeah.
Right, and actually, none of the investors were waiting to exit, right? I mean, so I think that was the other part of it where everyone was like, I mean, it was a happy journey overall. So I would say that I do feel proud of the fact that I was able to give that money back to them.
No, we were. I mean, obviously, it was disheartening to because I think this was a great story that was building up, and but again, I think it was the right thing for the company. But how did the founders celebrate? We talked about investors obviously celebrated. We got we went and maybe bought some expensive watches or something like that. How did the founders celebrate? What did they do?
No, I think honestly, like I said, I think it was more relief than anything else.
Did
And
the wives ask for
funnily
an
enough,
exit? Like the wives are like, listen, we're part of this thing too.
not at all, not at all, not at all. Of course, they were a part of it. I think, without a doubt, they're a big part of our journey. I think they've been around ever since we started. I think in our lives, they've been around ever since that time. But I think, like I said, it was more relief. Funnily enough, the secondary came in on 31st July, but the primary didn't come in till about 20th of August.
Wow.
So when we got our money, the first thing we did is actually to put the money back in the company to pay salaries.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was actually, yeah. I mean
The
that
wife
was
like,
why.
listen, I was supposed to go shopping.
No, that was actually the biggest. I mean, that was the reason for the relief because we were just waiting for the money to come in because we had to pay salaries and whatnot. So I think founder responsibilities first, right? So I think
Yep.
the moment the money came in, a big chunk of it went back in the company. Said, okay, first let's put in the company and ensure we continue running, and then we get the primary, we'll sort of take it back on. But I think. I don't know. I mean, we didn't celebrate as such. I think we went out for a dinner, I guess. I think the six of us. And I think then everyone started figuring out how to save on capital gains tax. I think that was the other thing that we all started doing.
The Gujaratis and the Marwaris come up with like tax.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and unfortunately, residential real estate is the only option for that. So I think that's the only thing that's there.
So, hey, thanks
Yeah.
so much, man, Harsh. This has been an amazing conversation. I don't think I could have asked for a better start to the money talks, and it really encourages me. We've been at it for almost 100 minutes now,
Right.
but the conversation seems like it could go on forever. So we'll probably have to call you back
Absolutely.
for one more
No worries.
episode. But before
Absolutely.
we end, one
Always
last
there.
thing that we'll ask you is that guys, if you want to reach out to Harsh and would like to get him to fund your company, be part of your journey, Harsh@fynd.com, and
That's right.
that's correct. And then so Harsh, the last question: one piece of advice that you would give to any entrepreneur who's right now at 10:40 p.m. at night listening in, what would you tell them to do right now? Besides going to sleep, because that doesn't count.
No, I think the one piece of advice is figure out how you're going to make profits. I think no matter where you are, and people say that it's the new fad of being a camel, cockroach, whatever else you want to call it, and you get profits. But I think we did it a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago. But figure out what are those moving pieces which is going to generate profits for you. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to realize that if you're not making any returns, I might as well put my effort and money somewhere else. So I would say just to figure out how to make, figure out that equation or figure out those factors. It's going to help you make you profitable. I would say that's like what you do right now at 10:40 p.m. But otherwise, if you already got that figured out, go read a book. I would say that's it.
And we already have those two books. So A Little History of the World and Range by David Epstein.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Harsh. Really enjoyed
Thank you
this
very much.
conversation.
Thank you, Eddie.
And,
Always a pleasure.
Look forward to having you back very, very soon. Good night,
Perfect.
everybody.
Great, guys. Thank you so much. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.